Hey guys, welcome back to BBN Network. Today is episode 2 of the championship series on the NCAA. Today we will talk about the 1971 championship through the 1996 championship. Through this time, Kentucky has 2 championships, 25 years. We recapped yesterday that Kentucky had 4 championships in 31 years, which is pretty good, I think. So, let's get into the 1971 championship. UCLA, who was on a big streak. I think they have 5 championships in a row, going for 6. John Wooden, the coach, playing Villanova and Houston. I think that was the one at the Astrodome. And UCLA pulls up another championship, winning 68-62. John Wooden had really good teams back in. That's why he was so successful. So now we'll get into the 1972 championship game. This starts the biggest win streak in history. 1972, UCLA again back in the championship, looking for 7 in a row. They play the mighty Florida State Seminoles in Los Angeles, California. John Wooden once again looking for another one. This would be his. This one would be his 9th. His 8th championship. They beat Florida State 81-76. And then the next year, 1973, they won again. So you're gonna hear a lot of UCLA. Not a lot after this. UCLA 30-0, 2 years in a row, 60-0. John Wooden, the coach, playing Memphis State in St. Louis, Missouri, and get swamped 87-66. In 1974, the famous Norm Sloan for North Carolina State playing Marquette in Greensboro, North Carolina. The NC State had a pretty good team then, and they won 76-64. 1975, the last championship for UCLA in 20 years, I think it is, 19 maybe. UCLA 28-3 on the season, coached by John Wooden. His last championship run, the year before, he had a 70-something wins in a row and lost. He plays Kentucky, Joe B. Hall, in San Diego, California, and UCLA wins 92-85. In 1976, the undefeated Indiana Hoosiers come into town in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, playing the Michigan Wolverines. 2 close rivals in the Big Ten. Bob Knight gets his first championship 86-68 against Michigan. In 1977, the year Kentucky won the NIT against Charlotte. In the NCAA side, Marquette, 25-7, coached by Al McGuire. The famous coach played North Carolina in Atlanta, Georgia. The final score was a famous score for us Kentucky fans, 67-59. If you remember, that's the score of the 2012 championship game. The next year, Goose Givens and the Kentucky Wildcats come into town, coached by Joe Hall. Kentucky playing against Duke and Coach Foster, Mike Jaminski in St. Louis. The game about that, they had to use the Indiana court due to weather had ruined the other court, so they used the Indiana court. Kentucky, 30-2 on the season, comes in, plays a young Duke team. Kentucky wins 94-88. 1979, Michigan State, after getting upset in the Elite Eight last year by Kentucky, come into town in Salt Lake City and play Indiana State in the famous Irvin Johnson versus Larry Bird that would go on in the NBA. Judd Heathcote for Michigan State, 26-6 on the season, beat Indiana State 75-64. Indiana State's only championship appearance in history. In 1980, the Louisville Cardinals 33-3 on the season, coached by Denny Crum. 59-54 was the final against UCLA in Indianapolis, Indiana. Denny Crum and the Louisville Cardinals get their first of 2 championships under his name, and then Louisville goes on in 2013 to get another championship, which gets vacated. So we're going to take a little break. We'll get into the 80s and 90s, and then this episode will be over. It's a quick one. So we'll be right back. This is BBN Network. Hey, welcome back to BBN Network. Today is episode 2 of the Championship Series, segment 2, the 1980s. The 80s was an action-packed decade for college basketball. It was the step point that really pushed it to where it is today. In 1981, Indiana, coached by Bob Knight, plays the North Carolina Tar Heels in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Bob Knight gets another championship, 26-9 on the season, play North Carolina and win 63-50. This next season, 1982, North Carolina, coached by Dean Smith, has the most talented player, some say the best of all time, Michael Jordan. And on the other side, Georgetown. This is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, or Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. Georgetown with Patrick Ewing. Michael Jordan hits the game winner to win 63-62. The next season, another North Carolina team, NC State, looking for their second title, playing Houston, who had Hakeem Olajuwon in Albuquerque, New Mexico. NC State comes in 25-10 on the season, coached by the famous Jim Valvano. Houston and Hakeem Olajuwon was close the whole game, but NC State hit the final shot to win 54-52. In 1984, the Georgetown Hoyas, looking for their first national title, playing Houston, the runner-ups, playing in Seattle at the Kingdome. Georgetown coached by John Thompson. Georgetown 34-3 on the season, win 84-75. Houston now 0-2 in the championship. In 1985, a breakpoint season in Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky loses to Georgetown in the semifinal, but Villanova, 25-10, the 8th seed, the high seed ever to win a championship, beat Georgetown 66-64. The coach, Raleigh Massimino, won Villanova's first national title in history. In 1986, Denny Crum comes into town versus Duke in Dallas, Texas. Louisville, 32-7 on the season, hit the game winner, 72-69 over Duke. Louisville gets their second national title and head more as one of the greatest in college basketball. 1987, Indiana back in the championship, playing a first time Syracuse in New Orleans, Louisiana. Indiana 30-4 on the season. This is the 48th national title. Indiana comes in and wins again. Bob Knight gets another championship, his third. I think that's right, third. 30-4. Syracuse almost had their first, but lose 74-73. The next game, 27-11 Kansas. The worst record we've seen in the championship, 1988. Larry Brown, the coach for Kansas, playing Oklahoma. Kansas City, Missouri, two conference rivals. Kansas barely pulls away, wins 83-79. 1989, the 50th anniversary of the NCAA tournament. Michigan, 30-7 on the season, facing Seton Hall in their first ever national title. In Seattle, it's once again in the Kingdome. Steve Fisher and the Michigan Wolverines barely pull it out in overtime, 80-79. The next game, in 1990, UNLV, 35-5 on the season, pull out the famous 30-point blowout against the Duke Blue Devils in Denver, Colorado. Duke still winless in the championship. UNLV gets their first national title. The next year, 1991, Duke back in the championship under Coach Mike Krzyzewski. They play Kansas in Indianapolis. Duke gets their first national title, 72-65. In 1992, the Duke Blue Devils, 34-2 again on the season, barely point away against Kentucky, coached by Coach K, I guess, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, play the Michigan Wolverines, who got robbed and lost by 20, 71-51. In 93, Michigan, some say the best team in the country. North Carolina, coached by Dean Smith, playing each other in New Orleans in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. North Carolina, 34-4, beat Michigan 77-71. And Carolina's third title. In 94, Arkansas Razorbacks, in their first time in the championship, coached by Nolan Richardson in Charlotte. Duke loses again in the championship 76-72, and Arkansas's historic win. In 95, UCLA's final title. In 11, coached by Jim Harrick, versus Arkansas in Seattle, Washington. The UCLA Bruins, 31-2 on the season, beat Arkansas back-to-back championships, but lose the second one 89-78. In 1996, 18 years after Kentucky had been in the title, they are back. Kentucky, 34-2 on the season, coached by Rick Pitino. Kentucky plays Syracuse, who had Wallace in East Rutherford, New Jersey, the last time it is going to be in an arena. Kentucky gets the win, 76-67, and that is big. It's a big championship, the 6th in program history, 2nd all-time. So that'll end the championship series. We'll get into some headlines. The news breakout. Could Emmanuel quickly come back? My answer is yes. I honestly think he will. The way he looked on that video. And EJ Montgomery was live on Instagram, and Quill Linton came on there and kind of hit Kentucky, saying that they'll hate you. He needs to kind of be quiet. He left the program, which is his fault. He shouldn't have did that, because he could have been a great player. But he left, and now he's telling his teammates that Kentucky's not good. Which I don't get, so we'll take a little break. We'll be back. Final segment. This is BBN Network. Hey guys, welcome back to BBN Network. This is Colton. So we got some news. We got a new website that I made last night. It's in the description of our podcast group. We won't be together for a long time. I honestly think they chose me to be the